Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, reach out to me and my crew at tmosso at thewatchbox.com. It's in the description, the direct service line for purchase requests concerning this or any watch you see here on Watchbox Reviews. And today we are discussing the Sinn U1 S E, a 44mm U-boat steel tegimented hard black coated dive watch that debuted late in 2016 for the 2017 model year. Now the watch is impressive, taking the basic U1, which bowed back in 2005, and in some ways changing the look and persona of the watch while adding a few technical refinements. Now you can see the timepiece. I'm going to do a wrist shot real quick right here. The wrist shot format is moved back a little bit in the video now. You get a good sense of the 44mm watch on my wrist. It's only 14.8 millimeters thick. I'll zoom out a little bit better so you can see it in proportion, but it's not as thick as you'd expect for a 44mm 1000-meter diver. From lug to lug, the watch measures 51 millimeters, and it has a 22mm spacing between the lugs. So if you want to accessorize with the strap, 22 is the size you would seek. Now you can see that the strap that's included is remarkably substantial and distinctive. First things first, it's made of silicone, not vulcanized rubber. So Sinn makes it a little bit thicker, and as you can see, despite the thickness, because it is silicone, it is very, very flexible. It has a little bit of character line molded into the flank, and you can see that there is an awful lot of material here to resist tears or failure. You also appreciate the fact that the timepiece features molded in bars. So all of the pre-scored cut lines feature molded in bars to keep the watch on the straight and narrow and welded firmly to your wrist. You can see that just as the watch is tegimented with hard black coating, so too is the clasp. Now this is a true pre-owned watch, and you can see the combination of the Tegiment carbon diffusing and the hard black coating keeps everything looking fresh. Very few scratches, scuffs even visible here. It's almost indistinguishable from factory. Twin trigger to point, you can see that it is a double trigger to point that you must release on both sides before it will deploy for security. Now the case band is relatively simple. As you can see, integrated lug profiles, all of a media blasted finish. This is the finish you'll see on all of the Sinn tegimented watches in both steel and titanium. It's basically a matte finish, granular, as though the watch has been sandblasted. You can see though it has a little bit of an elegance about its integrated lugs, and that's one of the reasons it wears so compact. The lugs are short and tightly curved. Now you can see there are little screws in the flanks of the bezel. That's because it is a captive bezel. Let's hear the detent first against the mic. It's a solid, deep detent. It's not like a cheap spring or cricket-like click. This one you really feel as much as you hear it. Now you can see the knurling is deep and sharp for easy grip, and because of this captive bezel construction where the bezel is fixed to the case using screws, you can't accidentally flip it off by hitting a doorknob, by hitting a door frame, by hitting a rock when you're diving. It is very securely fixed, and it must be mechanically disassembled before the bezel can be removed from the case. Makes matters a little bit more involved for your Sinn watchmaker, but more secure on your wrist. Now you can see the U1 S E has a few standout features, notably the hard black coating and the black and camel color scheme, and that is what I'm going to term this rather fall-inspired quasi-pumpkin. It's not quite as orange as pumpkin. It's somewhere between ecru and saddle leather. Now you can see that there are high contrast calibrations inside this tegimented bezel, and then there is a luminescent index. There are also highly luminescent hands and indices with a quirky Sinn specific design to them, and you can see that there's a matte black base to the dial to resist glare with a monotone black date disc. Now let's talk a bit about this hard black coating. There are actually three things going on with this case. First, and we're going to zoom in on the case back, we have what Sinn calls U-boat steel, which is quite literally submarine steel that Sinn procures from a German shipyard. If conventional 316L steel is about 250 to 300 Vickers. This is between 300 and 400. So you've got a harder steel that is more corrosion resistant to start with. Sinn then carbon diffuses, that is face hardens the steel used for the bezel as well as the case, creating a 1200 Vickers surface coating that actually has a little bit of penetration. So you start with a harder steel, U-boat steel, you add the 1200 Vickers surface treatment that actually seeps a few microns into the metal, so it's not purely a surface treatment, and then the hard black coating is added. The hard black is a DLC that's even harder than the 1200 Vickers tegimented steel facing. So the reason Sinn does this, and it only puts hard black on tegimented titanium or steel now, is because conventionally when you see DLC chip on a watch, what you're really seeing is the rock-hard DLC fracture as the softer metal underneath gives under pressure of impact. So a lot of times you wind up with an eggshell phenomenon where the hard black coating itself actually wouldn't mark, but because of a soft metal underneath, it winds up fracturing. There's an indentation, and then the material flakes off. Not so here, because the material underneath is actually sufficiently hard to prevent the collapse of the DLC. You actually finally realize the potential of DLC scratch resistance. The watch features 1,000 meter water resistance, a Sellita SW200, 26 joules, stop seconds, quickset date, 4 Hz, 8 beat per second rate, bidirectional winding, 38-hour power reserve. So it is a tank-tough tractor movement for a tank-tough pure utility watch. See and own this Sinn U1 S E on the watch box. Sinn U1 S E by night, everything loomed.